We have already 59. Yeah, it's just increasing.
I'm switching off the video. All of you could choose to switch off the video and wait for Swati to give us a signal that we should start.
Yeah, ma'am, do we wait till the attendees number reach 500, I mean the highest limit, or we'll start?
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yes.
Give them 5 minutes because we've just opened, no?
Yes.
So it will take time for all of them to join in. See, it's about 300 already.
Yes.
So I think, so is this the screen that they see?
No, ma'am.
What is the screen that they see?
They won't be seeing anything, ma'am.
Sujata has said hello. Dr. Prachi, Avinash, to all panelists. Good afternoon, Dr. Prachi, Avinash, faculty, CCASS, PhD, Udaipur. Maleshwari ma'am, you are muted. We cannot hear you.
Can we say welcome or we start with the session? Share from there.
No, we can start. We need not reply on the chat column though. Rohini is in, Nancy, Sani, Padmashri, Shanmugaraj is in.
Your mobile.
They're all saying hello. వచ్చిందారా అచ్చా ఎక్కడుంది అది So if I see Swati, I can actually see all of us on.
Yes, yes. They also can see this main screen, what we are able to see. Once the speaker starts presenting or starts sharing the screen, they can see the presentation. As of now, I think this is available to them.
Okay, great. I think they're able to hear us. So Uma ma'am, hi, nice to have you here. Ravindra is my colleague from Apollo DRDO. Then we have Pravalika. Hi Pravalika, hi Margaret. Margaret here from IHM Sri Shakti. Okay, hi.
Harita,
Yes.
we'll be giving responses, whoever is there, just to saying hello, hi.
Sure, sure. You go ahead and do that. I'm just saying here because we're just 400. I think another 5 minutes and then we could start. So hang in there.
Joined.
We have Jayashree Paranjpe, co-convener, IDEA Mumbai. Hi, ma'am. Anuja Agarwala is from AIMS. Hello, ma'am. I'm so glad you could join and welcome.
వద్దండి తర్వాత సెషన్ స్టార్ట్ అయిన తర్వాత విల్ బి అట్ ఈస్
Maleshwari, we can hear you. Do you want to mute yourself and switch off the video probably? Dr. Ananthan, you can have a lot of questions coming your way because Dr. Anuja is going to ask you a lot of questions. Dr. Shalini Srivastava, Archana Jain, hi. Rubina, hi. Rubina is my colleague from Apollo. Dr. Pulkit Mathur is from Lady Irving College, University of Delhi. Welcome, ma'am. We have a maximum limit of 500. So if you want any of your team members to join, please quickly ask them to join in and log in if they've already registered, because beyond 500, this Zoom capacity doesn't have more than 500, though we've had an overwhelming response. So we will need to figure out again how to conduct this session all over again based on the questions that all of you are going to ask. Dr. Kajal Pandya, hi. Dr. Kajal is from Medanta, and very commonly we are in many sessions together. Dr. Sunita Chandorkar is from Maharaja Sayajirao University, Baroda. Hi, ma'am. I am sure a lot of academicians are going to join this session because they have a lot of questions while students' new calculations are going on. So, Dr. Ananthan, I think from the student point of view, you will get a lot of questions. Priscilla Blesson is from UNICEF, working as a consultant for nutrition. Wonderful, wonderful Priscilla, welcome here. Dr. Tejinder Kaur Sarna, lifestyle nutritionist and meal planner from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Hi, ma'am. We always see you on FB, so you're so very familiar that way. Shipra Gupta, Institute of Home Economics, University of Delhi. Hi, ma'am. Welcome. Zamrud, hi, Zamrud. Welcome to the session. Another 2 minutes and we will be on. We already have, Swati, about 472 participants. So maybe it's time for all of us to start. Can I go ahead?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome from IDA Telangana chapter. This session is part of our Poshan Mah events, and we could do a couple of events during this month in terms of involving and increasing awareness. We've run a Facebook campaign, like many of you all, on posting your kitchen garden and encouraging the terrace garden concept. It was wonderful to see each and every one of you really already doing so much of terrace gardening or the little kitchen gardening, and it was great to see all those posts. Dr. Anandan here is here, and he himself has a huge terrace garden which he shared with us very recently. We also did a recipe contest as part of the events, and we did a quiz competition which was very unique because it was live. We had about 200 participants, and it had a wonderful scoring system which kept changing based on the fastest finger and the correct answer. So that was another unique experience that we had. Today, I welcome all of you for this webinar that we are conducting. We had started off thinking that probably it is very much for IDA Telangana chapter, but I realized that a lot of you have joined from all over India. So henceforth, I think we should keep capacities to much higher. We I didn't expect this kind of a response. So a very warm welcome to all of you from IDA Telangana chapter. This session, particularly today, is something long awaited. And I would hand over the reins to our moderator, Dr. Malleshwari. She is working as a chief dietitian with Global Hospitals and is been in the practice for about 25 years, I think, because Malleshwari has been in the field much longer than what I have been. I myself have been there for about 2 decades now. She specializes in gastrointestinal nutrition. They have a huge bariatric wing, and she's somebody who's very, very keen on doing every case presentation or a presentation that she does in great detail. She's also our RD coordinator for IDA Telangana chapter, and we've been able to structurize the entire RD recognition and planning of the examination through her. Over to you, Malleshwari.
Thank you, Harita. Good afternoon, all of you. I think this is a long-awaited session. We've always discussed with Dr. Anandan. He's a part of the IDA Telangana chapter. We've always discussed with him about this FCT table. The book is really huge and we cannot carry this book through. So we always used to tell him earlier it was very easy for us to carry this book, but these days it's very difficult. But anyway, moving along, I'm sure as I was reading through the introduction of the FCT tables, I understood that this has come into conception from 1937 and it has moved a way long with the latest publication which has come out in 2017, and day in and day out, whether it is nutrition research or whether it is the students in the college or we in the hospitals have been using these tables through. Yes, and over the period of time from 1937, there have been inclusions of new foods, new components, new nutrients, and this change has come up with the following up of the nutrition, the disease in the community. And at the same time, we've come a long way through. Apart from just the nutrients, I think as India has got a lot of different types of cuisines and variety of foods produced in different parts of the country, we even have one more step ahead as to the names of the foods have been given in different languages. So there are 11 languages mentioned in our nutritive value book. Without taking too much of time, I would like to introduce the speaker for today. We have two speakers today. I'm introducing the first speaker, or the first session is Food Composition Tables, Reference and Significance. Anandan sir, can we have your first slide, sir, so that we have the CV? Before I read on, as I read on, if the CV is there, I think it's going to be more better.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir, please. Dr. Anandan has been an active participant in the IDA Telangana chapter, and he's the secretary of the IDA Telangana chapter. He is the scientist D at just a minute. I think sir is sharing his screen.
Is it okay? Because my first slide is there.
I think he doesn't have the CV there, Malleshwari. You go ahead and introduce him.
Yeah. So I am happy to introduce to you Dr. Ananthan. He's the scientist D at NIN ICMR Hyderabad. He has a PhD in biochemistry. He has over 19 years of experience. Presently, his main work area is the FCT analysis. He's also involved in the development and standardization of analytical methods to quantify various nutrients, also has worked in quantifying bioactive phytonutrients and measuring their free radical scavenging capacity in functional foods. He's also working on a few projects where there is a study going on the biodiversity and food systems in the population with regards to the food availability, accessibility, and consumption patterns. He has about a lot of research papers to his credit, and he has authored 3 chapters. He is also on the faculty or the research supervisor for the PG as well as the PhD students. He is a member of IDA and NSI. He's a coordinator of the SAP Foods Regional Center, FAO Consultants for Food Consumption Development, and consultant by FSSAI NetFan. So over to you, Ananthan, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Ananthan sir, your video please as you talk.
My slide is visible to everyone?
Full screen. Yes, sir. You can start.
Sir.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction, and good afternoon to one and all. Of course, as Harita ma'am was telling, actually we supposed to organize this on behalf of our nutrition month. Unfortunately, it's got delayed, long delayed. But anyway, in continuation of this our celebration, and we proposed in the first week of October. I'm going to talk today the overview of food composition tables and its significance. Since I worked from the beginning for the development of Indian food composition tables, I wanted to elaborate a lot of clarifications and how the method, so many areas, how we involved all those things we are going to touch in different topics. Like I will start with the overview of the food composition tables in global level, different national level, and then we will touch upon the special emphasis on the Indian food composition tables 2017. In that particularly, there are main important aspects what we have carried out specifically for the identification of key foods, and then national level sampling, different analytical methods, what we have used, how we develop, and the quality assurance and quality control programs, what we have adopted. And then finally, what are the other significance in the for the usage of IFC 2017, and what are the food composition tables users. And there are few limitations across the use of the food composition tables, what are the things, and then finally I will conclude it. Let me start with the quote by McCann and Widdowson. A knowledge of the chemical composition of the food is the first essential in the dietary treatment of the disease or quantitative study of the human nutrition. So with this, let me have one or two brief introduction slides. What is food composition tables? So food composition tables is nothing but it's a repository for the content of nutritionally relevant chemical constituents, which is available in all the foods consumed by human as well as the animal. Particularly food composition tables, it's relied upon the nutrition research as well as the health practice, since it is a it provides a critical information for the content and the distribution of various these nutrients in different foods. In order to construct, develop, and manage of any food composition table, so there are different critical stages involved, particularly initially the designing, statistical designing, then food sampling, characterization of the components, analytical methods, development of analytical methods, estimation of the nutrients, and data quality assessment. Finally, we have to document and publish it. There are different varieties of food composition data available. If you take the original analytical value, which is nothing but either you can take it from the published literature or unpublished laboratory report, and this report exclusively if they prepared for the compilation of any food composition database. The imputed value, it can be derived from the other analytical value. It should be the similar. For example, the peas can be derived from the beans. The dried value can be derived from fresh value. Defatted value can be derived from fresh value. So similarly, calculated value, it can be calculated from the recipes or the ingredients by using the yield and the retention factors. The borrowed value, it can be borrowed directly from the other databases, but with the sufficient reference for the original sources from where we have taken. Presumed value in some situations, because of the rules and regulations of anybody, so then certain values will be directly will be assumed, or it can be considered as a zero as well. If you look at international level, there are many internationally used databases available. You might be seeing the ILSI. There are FAO database, many FAO databases are there. Initially, this FAO database created, first compiled in 1988, and then subsequently for every new publications, they used to update it. There are so many databases maintained by this InFoods FAO people. And in that particularly this dietary database version 2, composition database for biodiversity, analytical food composition database, and tables for the West African composition tables. Similarly, you can see in other countries like Canada, they have 2 databases. Caribbeans, they have the database. Even USDA, they have USA, they are having 4 database. Essentially, the first one, USDA database, the primary and the preliminary database widely used. Apart from that, Alaska Traditional Knowledge and Atwater Woods also, they are having the database. In European country, almost most of the European countries, they are having their respective database food composition tables. You can see the Belgium, Danish. I had a chance to visit this Danish food composition table where they developed. This is Denmark Technology University. I happened to meet some of the people. Then the German, Greek, Ireland, Italy, Dutch, Spanish, Czech, everyone, most of these European people also, they are having their own country database. Coming to the Asia, most of the Asian countries, particularly you can take Bangladesh, China, and ultimately we have the US, our Indian food composition tables. Now the Pakistan also, they are coming up. Now we are working for Sri Lankan food composition table, and now we are planning to take up the Maldives, and then Mauritius also, they are planning to develop their food composition tables. So these are all the different country database for their particular food composition tables. Coming to the particularly for our Indian food composition tables, NIN is responsible. Generally, it started way back in 1937 by when the NIN was originated in Kunnur. That time only they started by including 208 foods with only 14 nutrients. They published as a nutritive value of Indian foods and the planning for the satisfactory diets. And with that origin, then subsequently they revised in 1951 by increasing another 90 foods more with some more nutrients. It was revised with the same name, nutritive value of Indian foods and the planning of satisfactory diet. And then when our father of nutrition research in India, Dr. Gopalan, he revised this book as nutritive value of Indian foods in the year of 1971 by increasing the more number of foods as well as the nutrients. And then subsequently in 1989, there again a lot of nutrients and the foods added, and they revised the same book. After I think after 1989 there was no revision on this, the food composition of our Indian foods. Then later on in 2017 we published the latest Indian food composition table with 550 key foods with more than 200 individual nutrients or chemical components. So this is what I'm going to emphasize, how we planned, how to collect the sample, how we collected the sample, how we analyzed the sample, how ultimately we brought out this Indian food composition tables, which it may be useful for everyone. And I think I can expect many questions from all the audience, because already I used to hear from our IDA members, there are many people, they are having a lot of doubts, which is the reason like I wanted to emphasize particularly on the IFCT, and I also ready to clarify all your doubts. This is the flow chart, how we developed our IFCT. So starting from the identification of key foods and sample framing. Once the identification of key foods and the frames, the sampling was done, then the foods were collected. While collecting the foods, we used to identify the nomenclature, including the common name and the binomials, and simultaneously we have documented using all electronic documentations. And then later on, we used to composite the sample. Then we analyze the nutrients. While analyzing the nutrients, we used to use quality controls, both in-house quality controls as well as external quality controls. So these are all the things I'm going to explain in details in subsequent slides. Then after analysis, the analyzed data were reviewed thoroughly. Then it was published both in the soft copy as well as in the hard copy. The first stage is identification of key foods. As you know that our Indian cuisine varies widely across the country as per the region, culture and traditional, and all this characterized by different both plant foods as well as animal food sources. Analyzing all the foods which are consumed by the entire country, it is a little difficult due to various reasons, including the prohibitive cost involved. So therefore, we have to come to the conclusion, or we have to decide which is essential and that needs to be prioritized for the composition analysis. So we adopted this USDA method. It's called the key foods approach, and already it's well defined. The key food is defined as the foods which contribute up to 75% of the nutrient intake by the population. So how these contributions will come to know? This method, the key food approach method, combines the food consumption data along with the nutrient composition. Then getting the input, we will be ranking, and we will identify which foods are key foods as per the the ascending order. So these kind of the food consumption data generally we will get by the National Dietary Surveys only. Fortunately, we are having the Nutritional Monitoring Bureau, NNMB, which is our one of the NIN's department or division of the bureau, which was functioning. They were collecting the dietary intake almost 10 different states, which covers 3/4 of the geographical area and 2/3 of the total population of country. So we use this NNMB 2006 rural survey, which involved 30,244 individuals in all the age groups, collected using this 24 hours dietary recall method. Based on this, we identify the key foods. Then after identifying the key foods, then we have to design the sampling. The sampling also with the reference to Pearson, they used in Thailand. The sampling procedure to generate the National Food Composition database is a key foods involved selecting self-weighing nationally representative samples to estimate the composition of foods. So this was done to the sample. It was decided to sample at the district level, and whatever the samples collected at the district levels, it was analyzed as a key foods. Since all the states of our country or the union territories, it's not in the uniform size of in the population. So because the number of district in each states and the union territories, it varies. So ultimately we decided to go for the district wise sample collection. So again, the country was divided into 6 geographic regions because it varies. India is having a lot of the environmental vegetations, soil vegetations, soil in terms of the soil, in terms of the variety. So considering all these agro-climatical, agriculture practice, the varietal basis. So we divided into 6 parts: north, south, east, west, center, and northeast. And then the same kind of the classification or the division also conducted, also used by the NFHS various surveys, not only the recent surveys, even the previous surveys also they used to use, except the Uttar Pradesh. Here in our study, Uttar Pradesh we have included in the central region instead of northern region. So this covers starting from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, even the west side to east side, everything we covered. So you can see different states in different zones, central, east, north. I will explain you in detail. Then coming to the next, after identifying the districts or the states, again we have to identify, coming to the exact number of districts which needs to be collected, which needs to be identified for the sample collection. You know, each states, it has number of, various number of districts. So we decided the frequency distribution of the number of districts. We were arranged in the ascending order like this, you can see here. So based on the number of districts, so we decided how many number of districts needs to be selected from each states. So these are all the number of states which contains within this range of districts, like 1 to 4 districts, there are 9 states, 6 to 10 districts, there are 4 states, like that. So based on this, so we decided the number of the districts which needs to be selected from these kind of the states. So accordingly, we derive this many number of the districts which needs to be identified or which needs to be undergo for the sample collection. So this is the north zone, which covers, from Kashmir. This is the south zone, and wherever the red spots are there, that is identified districts for the sample collection. And this is the east zone, west zone, center, and northeast. So which covers 107 sample collection spots are the districts, which you can see in each states, and the number of districts, and among those things, how many districts selected. Here in the northeast part, because of the size of the state was very less, except Arunachal and Assam, we chosen only as the complete state as considered as single sampling spot. So including the districts and the union territories, we have chosen 107 districts. The sample collection centers. So here I just wanted to emphasize, in each zone, north, east, south, west, center, northeast, that is called as regional compositing zones. So each zone, there is a center we identified for north, Delhi, east, Kolkata, south, Bangalore, west, Mumbai, central, Varanasi, and northeast is Guwahati. So these composite samples are the composite center we made as a center where we used to bring the samples and composite all the sampling spots or the districts which we identified in the respective region. So out of 630 districts, as I told, 107 districts were identified, which covers 17% of the country. And due to the logistic reasons, the district headquarters was identified as the primary sample, and the towns were identified as a secondary sampling units. Here, so from Hyderabad, after identifying all these things from Hyderabad, so for this project, I just wanted to tell you more than 95 staff we recruited and we were working for the project. Apart from 95 staff, our permanent staff and even from administrative side also, there are few people, they came voluntarily for this sample collection. So we distributed, like we dispersed from Hyderabad to all the sample collection centers or the respective districts where we have chosen to sample collect. We dispersed and then we reached in the respective place. After reaching there, then we collected the sample. Before going to the sample collection, we used to make list of samples to be collected in each trip. Then the local name, the photograph of the particular food which needs to be collected. So everything was given in the small kit, and with that the people used to go and reach the respective sample collection center. After collecting the sample collection center, the samples, they used to come to the respective zones, which is a compositing zones, as I told you: Delhi, Kolkata, Mumbai, Guwahati, and Bangalore. So from here, whatever the samples which collected from the each respective zones, that was homogenated or the composited in this respective zone. Now all the 107 samples, it was made into 6 aliquates or 6 composite samples. All these samples again we brought back to Hyderabad for the analysis. So now literally we analyzed the samples individually from each composite zones: north, south, east, west, and central northeast. Then the mean of the sample, mean of this data, we have given as a national wide data in our database. For example, here you can see there are 6, as explained, the 6 zones. If you look at the central zone, there are 4 states: Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Uttaranchal, and Chhattisgarh. Here in the Madhya Pradesh, out of the number of districts, 50 districts, we chosen 8 districts. Similarly, more than 70, it's supposed to be 4 districts needs to be selected. So here also Uttar Pradesh also 8 districts we chosen. Similarly, Uttarakhand 3 and Chhattisgarh 3. So that 8 plus 8 plus 3 we brought to the Varanasi, where the central homogeneous or the composite center. Here we mixed it together, and we have taken the 2 aliquate from this composite sample that was shipped to NIN for the analysis. So we collected various food samples, plant food samples, animal food samples, and interestingly, in the animal foods, we also collected different body parts of the birds, like thigh, breast, wing, liver, gizzard, and even the poultries. The meat sample also we collected in a different parts. Coming to the meat sample, we collected, instead of collecting this 107 sample spots or the districts which identified, because of logistic reasons, we could not collect from the respective place. Instead of that, we collected in the respective composite center itself. Again, in the composite center, we made it into 6 parts. The city, we made it into 6 parts, and we collected all the samples, including the different meat cuts, different body parts. We collected from all the 6 sample places. Again, we made into we composite the samples. From there, we have taken the aliquate. All these samples, the animal foods or the fish or shellfish or inland fish, all these samples we have cleaned thoroughly. We removed all bones, and just as edible or about to cook, that stage we frozen into using the dry ice, and that was shipped without changing the cold chain till it reached NIN for the analysis. The fish samples we collected only from respective, directly we went to the fish landing ports, not from the districts which identified for the plant foods. The fish landing ports was referred by CMFRI, Central Marine Fish Research Institute, Cochin, which covers both west and east coast of all fish landing sites. In the west, Mumbai, Goa, and Kochi was selected, and here the Vizag, Chennai, and Mandapam was selected. So these are the 6 different landing sites from where we have collected all the sea fish and shellfish. And here also we cleaned, evacuated, and removed all the bones, deboned, and finally we packed in the dry ice and we shipped into Hyderabad. Then after receiving, like this is, we have collected the sample, we have composited the sample, we have transported the sample to Hyderabad. Excuse me, just give me 1 minute. Sorry. As soon as the sample reached NIN, Food Chemistry Department, for the analysis, so we used to check the samples, the integrity of the samples, whether it is damaged, whether it is acceptable condition. If it is any damage or all this, particularly the green leafy vegetables, we have to throw it. If it is not acceptable condition, we used to throw it. Then immediately that particular sample we used to enter into the next sampling collection cycle. So we used to collect in the next cycle. All the foods were properly recorded using alphanumeric code, and this food code was used throughout the analysis till the book, till the database was released. Then once the sample was unopened, the package was opened, and the sample preparations again, if it is the green leaf vegetables, we used to use a liquid nitrogen for grinding the samples, or the meat samples we used to use a homogenator, or if it is a dry sample we used to use the domestic mixie or the mill, flour mill. After grinding the samples or the powdered the samples, we used to store in an airtight container with appropriate location with the proper labeling, which was used till 6 to 7 years. In case of any repetitions or the cross checks, everything, it was properly used. These are the few pictures where we used to composite the samples at the sampling sites, and then we brought the samples through air with the proper package. You can see this. This is a fish samples we transported from different seaports with the thermocol box inside the dry ice. Even the permission, we have to get a lot of permission in the airlines, because only the fish is not allowed in the air. I don't know whatever the reason, except the fish, everything it can be transported. The fish was very difficult to transport, but we got the special permission from the ministry. So we're using that, we transported. Once it comes to the laboratory, yes, all our staffs, we used to clean and then remove the edible parts, and then we have to grind the samples. We used to store the samples. Then coming to the analysis, the analytical parameters which we used to use, that is very important, equally how we used to do the sampling, because that method is very, very important for accurate results or the reliable results. So we used most of the parameters wherever the AOSC methods are there, efficient analytical chemist method. If it is available, we have used. I'm going to show you all the parameters, what are the different methods we have used it. And if the method is not there, AOSC method is not there, then we have used the suitable, appropriate, internationally published method, and that we have chosen, and we have validated, standardized. Sometimes we used to develop by mixing the 3-4 methods, and we used to develop the new methods, and all standardized and developed methods in our laboratory was duly validated using the IUPAC or AOSC norms. All the validation protocols, you have to see that your linearity, your reproducibility, your recovery, robustness, all those things, LOD, LOQ, everything you have to do in order to, validate your method, and that was documented. So then for the new components, because of increasing demand in order to understand the phytochemical or phytonutritional importance of all the commonly consumed foods, so we have included a lot of bioactive components in our new food composition database, which including all these bioactive components, there are about 300 food constituents were studied, were quantified. You can see different parameters in the proximates, water-soluble vitamins, fat-soluble vitamins, individual free sugars, oligosaccharides, sterols, phytopolyphenols, and other bioactive phyto components. All those things we have given in our IFCT book. These methods, whatever these methods, what we have used, it was scrutinized thoroughly for their robustness in analyzing all the components, and particularly before starting these, the foods which we collected all over India, we collected within the Hyderabad and Secunderabad different food matrices, different food groups, because we have to ensure the method which is working for all types of foods, the tubers or leafy vegetables or the fruits, because these different fruits, different foods are having different matrices. So in order to ensure the robustness on these different foods, so we used to collect the samples, and then we have analyzed, we have standardized in such a way that it should work for all types of foods. These are all the methods which we used. This is approximate composition. Mostly you can see AOSC methods, and then only the energy was converted using Atwater conversion factors. And these are all the vitamins, water-soluble vitamin and fat-soluble vitamins. And vitamin B1, B2, B3, we use the microbiological assay as reported in AOSC. Whereas other vitamins, we use sophisticated equipments, very sensitive equipments, reverse phase HPLC or UPLC or UHPLC we used. And similarly for fat-soluble vitamins also, the HPLC techniques was used for the quantification of different vitamins. Here, I also would like to emphasize some of the vitamins, the vitamin B6 and the vitamin B9 and even vitamin E, all these vitamins we used to analyze. We have analyzed up to the vitamin level. When we use the HPLC, we can able to quantify the fraction level. In case of vitamin B9, if you take, so we have reported as a total folate, but we have quantified individually all individual vitamins, folate vitamins, tetrahydrofolates, methyl tetrahydrofolates, formyl tetrahydrofolates. So all these 6 different folate vitamins we quantified, and the sum of them we have given as a total folate. Similarly, B6 also, individual B6 vitamins, PL, PM, PM, all those things we have quantified. The vitamin C also we quantified, vitamin C ascorbic and dehydroascorbic acid. So like that, since we have used sophisticated methods, and we also standardized the method in order to quantify the nutrients up to their vitamin level. Similarly, the free sugars we have done using HPLC refractive index detector by AOSC method. The starch we have given individual starch, oligosaccharides we use the HPLC method again. The phosphorus we used to quantify by calorimetry instead of AAS, atomic absorption. And heavy metals and trace elements, we use the ICP-MS, which is very sensitive. We used to quantify in the ppb level. All other minerals we have used atomic absorption spectrometry, either by flame or graphite, or with the hydrate generator also we have used for few metals like mercury, arsenic, all those things. Then the organic acids, oxalates, these were quantified using HPLC methods. The fatty acid profile. So we have very good standardized method which able to quantify 37 fatty acid in the single stretch. We use the fast gas chromatography to quantify all these individual fatty acids. And then amino acids. Very interestingly, we have dedicated amino acid analyzer which is able to quantify all 18 primary amino acids. And dedicatedly we used for amino acid analysis. The phytosterols, we use the gas chromatography like that. The polyphenol for HPLC, then phytate. Again, we use the ion exchange spectrophotometry. Then so total supporting also by the calorimetry method we quantified. So these are all the different methods used for different analysis, and everything was documented. All the methods were validated, and after thoroughly identifying the method, after thoroughly validating the methods we used for the quantification of all the nutrients which reported in the IFCT 2017. The very important scheme, very important assignment while doing this analysis particularly, we have to have the quality assurance and the quality control samples in order to ensure your sample or your analysis is perfect, or your analysis, whatever the data you are getting out of your analysis is correct. In order to ensure the analysis, we use the quality control samples, particularly from the external quality control samples, till the method was developed perfectly, or the standardization was done completely. We used certified reference method from European Commission, and again the standard reference material we purchased from the NIST, National Institute of Standard Technology, USA. So both the CRMs and the SRMs, which contains most of the analytical data which already we have the reported, those samples we have used for the cross checking the quality assurance and quality control. Since these CRMs and SRMs are very expensive and we may not use for for daily or day-to-day analysis, for that purpose we have developed our in-house quality control materials, particularly market rice, which we purchased in the bulk quantity, and that was used as in-house quality control. And that in-house quality control is well established through our the regular analysis, and then ultimately once the in-house quality control is established, that was used batch to batch analysis. And similarly the CRM and SRM also was used in the every alternative days or weekly once. Apart from this, our laboratory, food chemistry laboratory, we are participating regularly in the external proficiency testing programs, PT programs like WAPOL and WAPOL PT programs, and similar to that, one or two programs we used to participate. Even the WHO PT programs also we are participating for fatty acid analysis now, ring trials. So these are all the different food groups which we have reported. In each food groups, you can see the number of the food samples what we have collected, which is coming around 542 foods, which includes different varieties as well. This is the analytical data how we have derived. So this data I have taken from the whole wheat. So when we collected the whole wheat from the respective place, the respective collection centers, which I explained, it's 107 places. When we analyzed each zones, the composite zones individually, you can see the variation from, the 3 to 4, 5 also. When we analyze the samples which collected from the individual districts or the collection centers, you can able to see the variation is very high. And then the mean of the particular, all the samples, it is 4.2. Similarly, this, the Western India, North India, other South India, Central and Northeast India also you can able to see. But when we composite the sample, when we composite the sample as I told in the, the sampling plan or the sample collection, when we composite that all East India samples or the West India, North similarly, and you can see that the variation was very less and the mean it was also, it is the SD also, it will come down automatically. So this is the one particular example. I just wanted to explain how the variation will come down when we do the composite samples. Similarly, you can see in the zinc also, when we do the individual analysis, when we do the analysis in the individual samples, yes, of course, the variations will be there. And then coming to the composite samples, the variation will come down. So these are all the different parameters which we have listed in our food composition tables. Table 1 to 12, the fatty acid profile of edible oils and fats is the last table. This is one example what I wanted to explain how the IFCT tables looks like this. This is the one particular example page. Here you can see this is a food code. What I used to say, that's an alphanumerical code. A, you can see in this table, A is, A belongs to cereals, B grains, legumes, C green leaf vegetables. Similarly, it goes to S, T for oils and fats. So those alpha along with the numeric number which represent the number of foods. So this is a food code and the name of the foods which includes the binomial names. And this is the region which, how many regions contribute or from how many regions we have collected the sample. And here, this is the data which represent the mean and SD. And so the SD of 6 regions, 6 composite centers value. And similarly, this is called in-foods tag names. And these tag names used for the international exchange of the data. I'm happy to say that FAO refers our food composition tables for many countries, and they used to use as a referral. I'm happy to inform that I'm also I'm a consultant for the FAO. I'm happy to see somebody from Ethiopia. Dr. Sarna is here. I'm a consultant for your country as well. And in order to exchange this kind of data, and we used to use these in-foods tag names. And for the easy identification for the page track, I have given this, the label this, the vertical side or the portrait side in order to identify the tables easily. And if you look at the tables, we have given in different Indian languages. Initially, we wanted to give all the 15 languages which is available in our rupees note. And apart from that, there are some other languages like Manipuri, Khasi, like Northeastern languages also we have included up to what we can able to get it. We tried to give in the respective the scripts, but unfortunately the scripts we unable to get for all the foods. Hope I can able to include in the future, the editions. Finally, it was released in January 2017, 18th January 2017 by that Honorable Health Minister JP Nadda. And that is, during the releasing time, as Malleswari Garu was explaining in the beginning, the volume of the book, the weight of the book is approximately 1.8 kg. So of course, the carrying the heavy book is little difficult. Even our the health minister also narrated the book weight is little more. So better you please convert it into other digital form, including the mobile app. So based on his the suggestions or the idea, we developed mobile app as well, so which can be used by all the participants. I can show you some of the screenshots, and not only the compositional data, and even there are many more applications are there where you can make use of it. Coming to the users, there are many users apart from our nutritionist or the other scientists. There are many other users are there, particularly the agricultural scientists. They use it for various applications. Then the food technologists, they use it. Dentists nowadays, they use it. All the many physicians, they use it. Even the journalist, I had a call from one journalist from Delhi, and then she was inquiring all those things because of this. She was, the linking the corona lockdown period in terms of the nutrients, what the people they used to, they supposed to eat. So like this, if you look at it, there are so many variety of people, they used to refer the food composition tables. This is what I just was explaining you. So we developed our, based on the IFCT data, we have developed mobile app, which can be freely downloaded from both the platforms, the Google Play Store as well as iOS platform. You please download this mobile app. You can check. So these are all the informations you can get. So what is your nutrient requirement based on your BMI and what is there in your food? So search for the nutrients with respect to particular foods, and you can arrange in the ascending order, descending orders. So many options are there to get your data output, and you may get little, the slow because of some reason, technical reason, which we are planning to increase the speed. That will be done in a few weeks time. But anyway, now you can able to download and use it for your application. I also happy to inform you that based on our revised or the recent IFCT 2017, we have revised our RDA, and we also have incorporated EAR, estimated average requirements. That was recently, very recently, last week only it was launched or released by the current Honorable Health Minister Harshvardhan ji. Apart from this, we also have developed our website, but this is not yet launched. Just for information, I just wanted to give the glimpse, and which includes different food search for the user-friendly food search. You can search by food groups, content, and QR codes and graphical representations. You can see this, the QR codes, it can be print, or you can view it and magnify it. You just scan this one, then you will get all the nutrient information pertaining to that particular food. You can see, and even this is by the food groups. If you select the food groups, you can see all the foods, and you can able to see by each foods the respective nutrients. You can also choose the individual nutrients which you wanted to compose, or you can view it. So those things also it's going to come. This is under again the validation. We have circulated among the international reputed people for their suggestions that will be released, and we are also planning to include even the diet survey calculations as well. Will be including for the application of for the many students, because I used to have the calls from many students. They are getting the softwares or the packages, paid packages of softwares. So I'm sure in future we are going to stop all these paid softwares and packages, and we are going to make it free for all the our Indian nationals. There are limitations for the food composition database. The first thing we have to understand what exactly the data, how it is derived, how the data it is either for the the composite sample or the single sample, or how the sampling was done. All those things we need to understand very clearly. So another thing is, so all these food samples are the biological materials. Obviously, the variations will be there among these biological samples. So that also we have to keep it in mind. There are certain variations will be there for these biological samples. Then another thing is, there are some the studies, particularly the metabolic studies, this kind of where we used to intervention studies. So these diets or the meals needs to be quantified directly instead of calculating from the food composition tables in order to, they interpret it exactly. And another thing is we cannot predict very accurate results for certain nutrients, particularly like very sensitive nutrients like vitamin C and folates. As I told, we have quantified using the folate vitamins and the vitamin C vitamins. So sometimes, the variations will be there. That is the reason we have done the composite samples, that variations can be, the variation can be minimized or the error can be minimized. And sometimes the manufacturer formula may vary when it comes to the laboratory. So that needs to be taken care. So some of the limitations always will be there that can be overcome. Then finally, I'll come to the conclusion. In this Indian food composition tables, as I explained, the important factors, the key foods identification we have done, and the national level food sampling we have identified. That in order to improve the composition database for the national level food composition database. And then we have arranged adequate infrastructure. Here, I'm happy to say that all the food components, almost more than 200 food components, what I have explained, it can be done, it can be quantified under the single roof. This kind of facility you cannot see anywhere else. So such kind of facility, even the equipments, the dedicated equipments for dedicated nutrients, the dedicated personnel, technical personnel, we allotted the technical person, we will use one system and one parameters. So all these kind of precautionary measurements and the well-equipped equipments, and then the infrastructures we develop in order to develop this in IFCT in, this thing. And the identification of the key foods, and then the sample design, analytical parameters, what I have explained, all those things, it's we have included in this one. Altogether, it is called as an ideal plan. And this ideal plan made to analyze more than 115 analytical parameters. We have analyzed, though we have analyzed individual sampling sites, all the 6 regional composite sites. Ultimately, as I told, we have given as a mean of 6 regions. In case for any research purpose, if any regional database, if it is required, then they can approach us. And if they justify proper reasons, we are very happy to provide them the regional database. Thank you so much. And I wish to acknowledge it. ICMR, our council.
The host has asked you to start your video.
They
Yes, okay, fine.
contributed the entire fund for the study, and our research team, this is the last batch of our research team who worked dedicatedly day and night sometimes, and even the Saturdays also they work for the development of IFCT. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ananthan sir, for giving us the activities which happened, which ultimately culminated to the formation of the IFCT tables over the years. Sir, from my side, I just wanted to ask, we wanted to have the question answer session to the end. So please stay on with us, and I will take this opportunity to invite the next speaker. I will straight away go to introducing him. The next talk for the day. Sir, can we have your CV mounted, sir? Naveen, sir?
Yes, madam.
The next talk for the day is food safety myths and facts. We have Dr. Naveen Kumar speaking to you. He is the Senior Technical Officer, Department of Pathology and Microbiology from ICMR, National Institute of Nutrition, Hyderabad. He has his PhD in microbiology. His research interests are biofood preservation, microbiological risk assessment, and his expert areas are microbiological risk assessment, investigation of food poisoning causes and food adulteration, and is a committee member of the Bureau of Indian Standards, Food and Nutrition Board, Ministry of Women and Child Development, Government of India, Codex Committee of NIN. And he's got about 25 publications to his credit. in the aspects of safety and microbiology. And he is a faculty member in tutoring MSc Applied Nutrition from NIN. He is a life member of Association of Food Scientists and Technologists, India, and Nutrition Society of India. He has several awards to his credit. Sir, can we have you take on the session, sir?
Yes, madam. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. Thanks for the nice introduction. First of all, good afternoon to one and all. I would like to thank IDA Telangana chapter for giving me this opportunity. So in today's talk, I want to give an overview. I want to give you introduction of food safety laws and regulations, and major food safety concerns in India, and keys for food safety, and global and Indian data on foodborne disease, critical risk practices of street vendors, myths and facts of food safety, and conclusion. So I prepared this presentation keeping student in point of view. So to begin with my presentation, this month, 16th October, we are going to celebrate World Food Day. Every year, FAO and WHO, they will give a theme for World Food Day. This year's theme is Grow, Nourish, Sustain, Together, Our Actions Are Our Future. So during this COVID-19 pandemic, many go without food. So preserving access to safe and nutritious food is and will continue to be essential part of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, especially for the poor and vulnerable community. So it is more important to recognize our heroes, that is farmers and workers throughout the food system. So coming to the theme of this year World Food Safety Day, again it is given by FAO as well as WHO. The theme says that food safety is everyone's business. Means food safety is a shared responsibility between government, producers, and consumers. So everybody has a role to play from farm to table to ensure the food we consume is safe and will not cause harm to our health. This is the theme of this year's World Food Safety Day. So coming to the history of food safety. So before independence, India used to procure food from other countries. India was not self-sufficient. So during 1960s, Green Revolution, after Green Revolution came, then cereal production, pulses production got increased. Then White Revolution came, milk production got increased, and silver production came, egg production got increased. And in the last 2 decades, India is suffering from nutrition transition. What is nutrition transition? It is a situation of having the problems of both undernutrition and overnutrition. So this transition, due to tremendous development in food production, processing, storage, transport, with changes in food consumption, it leads into new food safety issues like microbial pathogens, food additives, environmental contamination, etc. So this begins nowadays. Food safety is gaining a lot of importance in India. So what is the necessity of food safety? Just to prevent foodborne disease, food safety is required. So if you go to the definition of food safety, it is the degree of confidence that food will not cause sickness or harm to the consumer when it is prepared, served, and eaten according to its intended use. So if you see the safe food definition according to common man and a food scientist, according to common man, it is the food should be prepared under sanitized condition, and it is preparation under hygienic condition, and it should be handled properly during processing, distribution, and retail. Whereas according to food scientists, the safe food should retain vitamins and nutrients, and there should be absence of toxins, insects, pesticides, and fungus infestation, and should have reasonable shelf life. So then India, thinking all these food safety issues, established Prevention of Food Adulteration Act in 1954. This act includes information on food standards, procedures for sampling and analysis of food, what laboratories has to analysis food, nature of penalties, and food additives, preservatives, packing and label of foods, prohibition and regulation. All this information was there in this Food Adulteration Act 1954. Then there was a demand for new food regulation. Why? Because there was a scope of international trade, liberalization of food trade, and growing consumer demand, and development in food science and technology demanded for new food regulation. Then FSSA, Government of India, has established Food Safety Standards Act in 2006, which enacted to consolidate the laws relating to food and to establish FSSA, that is Food Safety Standards Authority of India. So then what is the difference between Prevention of Food Adulteration Act and FSSA? PFA was having several authorities and it was giving emphasis only on adulteration, and it was having prescribed standards, and it was giving a more emphasis on inspection and control. Whereas FSSA is a single authority and giving more emphasis on safety of food, and it includes general standards and give more emphasis on monitoring and surveillance. So coming to FSSA Act 2006, it is having 12 important chapters. Each chapter will explain different aspects of food safety. That is chapter 1, preliminary. It includes the definition of food, food safety, risk, exposure assessment, hazard, characterization, all these things. I will not go into the details of these all 12 chapters due to the time concern. So all these orders will have established into FSSA Food Safety Standards Authority of India, like Meat Products Order, Prevention of Food Adulteration Act, Food Products Order. All these orders they took into point of consideration, and they established this FSSA. This FSSA lays down the science-based standards for articles of food and regulates their manufacture, storage, distribution, sale, and import to ensure availability of safe and wholesome food to 130 crore citizens of the country. The main important point of FSSA is it lays down science-based standards. So it is having the food authority, it's having a FSSA having a chairperson and 22 members. In one side, they're having a scientific community, which is having 17 scientific panels. And I'm happy to share that. And scientists are also, they are a part of a scientific panel of FSSA. And FSSA is also having Central Advisory Committee, State Level Steering Committee, and District Level Advisory Committee, which takes care of compliance and inspections. So coming to the factors which affects the food safety, there are 3 important factors are there which affect food safety, that are biological hazards, chemical hazards, and physical hazards. So coming to major food safety concern in India. The major food safety concern in India, the first one is microbial pathogens. Recently, one of the article shows that some of the emerging food pathogens like E. coli, O1 5787, Listeria monocytogenes, Campylobacter jejuni are found in the milk products. And then pesticide residues. This usage of pesticide residues and regulations of pesticide residues in different food commodities is a cause of concern. And then again, nutrition label and nutrition reference values. Nutrition label, food labeling is one of the important parameter for a consumer point of view. Actually, India is undergoing as I earlier told, nutrition transition, and consumption of pre-packaged foods has increased in recent years. So where overweight, obesity, and non-communicable diseases are increasing, food labeling is also an important the population-based approach that can make consumers to choose healthy food. So by providing necessary information about the nutritional facts of the food on the pack, that is in the form of nutrition labeling, it is one of the important view. And then coming to nutrition reference values. The Codex Alimentarius mandates these nutrient reference values should be used to help consumers. These NRVs are the numerical values that are based on scientific data for the purpose of nutrition labeling and relevant claims. Presently, RDA formulated by National Institute of Nutrition are being used as a default for NRV. There is a need to develop these NRVs in the Indian context. And then environmental contaminants like lead and cadmium, heavy metals, these are also food safety concern. And then Evaluation of health claims. Like for example, health claims should be based on the scientific evidence. Such kind of products is also a food safety a concern. And risk assessment of food additives. Now, currently, certain food additives in our regulation is not based on the risk assessment, for example, food colors. So such kind of foods as the risk assessment has to be studied in such foods, and regulation has to be made. This is also one of the major food safety concern. And developing microbiological criteria for Indian foods. What is this microbiological criteria? Microbiological criteria is acceptability of a food product based on the presence or absence of microorganisms or toxins per unit or per lot or per mass. It is beneficial for food regulators as well as business operators. So along with that, dose response studies and quantitative microbiological risk assessment for human health risk is also important and one of the food safety concern. And strengthening epidemiological investigation. Epidemiological investigation like foodborne disease investigation is one of the important food safety concern in India. So, and then coming to genetically modified foods. This is also one of the important food safety concern in India. And coming to World Health Organization has given 5 keys to safer food. That is, keep clean, separate raw and cooked foods, and cook thoroughly, and keep food at safe temperature, and use safe water and raw materials. Based on this, we have developed, NIN has developed 5 keys to safer food for Indian condition. What are those 5 keys for Indian condition? The first one is clean hands properly. And the second one is practice proper food handling. And the third one is ensure safe drinking water at point of use, and keep your home kitchen clean, and wash fruits, vegetables with potable water. These are the 5 keys developed by NIN for Indian condition. This is in detail, like how to clean your hands regularly. I'll not go into detail of this. So we have developed food safety in domestic refrigerators. Like in Hyderabad, most of the households don't know like what temperature the refrigerator will work. Then we developed some key messages for safe storage practices using refrigerator. So for the first one is, we should store the raw and cooked foods separately in the refrigerator, and heat the leftover cooked foods stored in refrigerator thoroughly as soon as they are removed from the fridge for consumption. Do not thaw or reheat again and again. And the third one is, we should clean the refrigerator once a week to prevent cross contamination. And we should always keep the refrigerator on even when it is not in use. And we should cut the roots of green leafy vegetables while storing in refrigerator. And we should always keep separate raw and cooked foods as well as cut and uncooked foods and store them in a different racks. These are the key messages developed for the safe food storage practices using refrigerator. So according to World Health Organization, diarrheal diseases are the most common illnesses resulting from unsafe food. Diarrheal diseases are responsible for global burden of foodborne diseases caused by 31 hazards. So if you see the Indian condition under 5 children mortality rate in India, if you see, total children death per year is 1.1 million, whereas death due to diarrhea is 1.1 lakh. This is according to the data of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. If you see the bacteria involved in foodborne disease, traditional foodborne pathogens are there like Staphylococcus aureus, Bacillus cereus, Vibrio parasiticus, Escherichia coli, and Salmonella, whereas emerging pathogens like E. coli O157, Listeria monocytogenes, and Campylobacter jejuni. What are these emerging food pathogens? These foodborne pathogens have occurred very earlier, and oftenly these have their number has rised up. That's why these are referred as emerging food pathogens. And the main important factors responsible for occurrence of foodborne diseases are improper holding temperature, inadequate cooking, contaminated equipment, and food from unsafe source, and poor personal hygiene are the factors responsible for occurrence of foodborne disease. So I'll not go into the detail of definition and all those things. So we have developed we have written a review on foodborne disease in India. So we have published in British Food Journal. According to that, 29 years data we took, published information that includes 37 outbreaks involving 3,485 persons. According to the data reported foodborne disease outbreak due to bacteria from 1980. You can see around 12 foodborne disease outbreaks, and right from Yersinia to Salmonella, Escherichia coli, many microorganisms have caused these foodborne disease outbreak. Here, one important feature is, among all the pathogens, Salmonella is the major bacteria which has caused most of the foodborne disease outbreak in India. And the second one is, these are the reported foodborne disease outbreaks in India. Like you can see, chemical food poisoning is there, bacterial food poisoning is there. Here, maximum outbreak have been occurred due to bacterial food poisoning, but deaths were more due to chemical food poisoning. This is the pathogenic bacteria isolated from different foods. And you can see 20% of the deaths were due to microbial contamination, whereas you can see the deaths due to chemical contamination is 80%. And 23% of the foodborne disease due to microbial contamination, whereas 77% of the foodborne disease due to chemical contamination. In NIN, we were having National Foodborne Disease Surveillance Portal, which was developed by NIN. According to that data, you can see if you organism-wise, if you see the foodborne food poisoning in India, Escherichia coli is one of the bacteria which is causing major food poisoning outbreaks. After that, you can see Salmonella is one of the food pathogen which is causing food poisoning in India. And next one, if you see total number of cases state-wise, West Bengal is leading in food poisoning, foodborne disease outbreak, followed by Gujarat, Kerala, Rajasthan, whereas Telangana you can see down. And the next is total number of cases event-wise. You can see marriage ceremony and the feast having most food poisoning outbreaks. After that, followed by hostel, canteen and mess, and followed by midday meal and noon meal, which are the government schemes. And total number of cases due to age, if you see, primary school students are more affected, followed by high school students. If you see food item wise, contaminated food causing most foodborne disease outbreak, followed by puja prasad. You can see the prasad offered in the temples, 12.2% of the foodborne disease due to puja prasad. So different food items. And then coming to year-wise total number of outbreaks, you can see maximum number of outbreaks we observed in 2016 and 17. And this is in Hyderabad. So we were having collaboration with Fever Hospital. We have investigated some food poisoning cases in 2003 to 2005. 10 food poisoning cases we investigated. So out of 10 food poisoning case, 9 food poisoning cases were caused due to Staphylococcus aureus, and 1 was due to Salmonella. This Staphylococcus aureus is most due to Staphylococcus aureus will be more in milk products, especially Kova, which is a desiccated milk product. Most of the sweet prepared in Kaddu ka kheer, you might have heard in Hyderabad. It's one of the famous dish, Kaddu ka kheer. This Kova they are going to add to this item. So we found that was the major culprit over here. And see, not only the cases, see, economic burden to the country is also huge due to this foodborne disease outbreak. We have also collected one of the foodborne disease outbreak. What will be the cost? One food poisoning cases has cost 90,000. This data also we have published. So we have also found some risk practices among street food handlers, like among pani puri street vendors and then fruit juice vendors. We found peeled and cut fruits left uncovered is having high risk, and the thread what that vendor is going to tie to his hand, his clothing, the cloth which is used to, and the jars what the fruit juice vendors they will use, and they will starting from the noon to the night, they will not wash the jars what they use to prepare the juice. That is one of the risk factors. We have also developed some of the training that handouts to train these street food vendors. So coming to the quality of cooked rice, you might be having some question. If you have a cooked rice or a dal or something like, what will be the shelf life of these dal and rice? So we have done a study on microbial quality of cooked rice. It was prepared at a household condition as well as a street vendor condition. You can see the rice was good in household condition up to 6 hours. You can see the contamination started after 2 hours of incubation in a street vendor condition. Same in case of Bacillus cereus contamination and Salmonella species contamination. You can see the Bacillus cereus contamination also started after 2 hours of incubation at street vended food. Whereas in case of, this is a dal. You can see cooked dal will be safe up to only 4 hours at a household condition. Whereas after 2 hours, the contamination has started in case of street vended condition. So dal will be safe. This total bacterial count is nothing to worry, but Bacillus cereus and Salmonella species are very important. So up to 6 hours, your dal will be safe. Whereas you can see dal prepared in street vended condition started contamination after 4 hours of incubation. Same in case of chicken. We have cooked chicken, both in case of household condition, street vended condition. It was also safe up to 6 hours in case of household condition, whereas street vended condition, the contamination was started out from 4 hours onwards. So we have also done some work on microbiological hazard identification and exposure assessment of poultry products. Like you might have heard chicken fried rice, chicken noodles, where they will stand in street food vendors. We found salmonella in salads, what they are going to offer along with the street food. Then we did some HACCP study, that is hazard analysis critical control point, where we found that it was knife was the culprit, which is with the knife the street vendor was using both for the chicken as well as the salad. The salmonella was transferring from the uncooked food to the salad. That was the main culprit over there. So coming to the myths and facts, I'll go fast as time is very short. So I'll go a little fast. Wax coating on apple is harmful. Actually, it's a myth. The wax coating on apple is of food grade and it is safe to eat. It is applied to avoid moisture loss, fruit firmness, and natural degradation. So recently in the media, there was a havoc among the public regarding the plastic rice. First of all, plastic rice doesn't exist. Sample showed negative results. It was analyzed both in Kerala as well as Telangana. If you make a balls out of the cooked pastry rice and drop it on the surface, it bounces a little bit. So oxytocin-laced milk can cause serious hormonal complications in consumers. So the fact is, NIR has given a clean chit to the injection, almost ruling out any harmful impact on the human health. Oxytocin present in milk is rapidly degraded during intestinal digestion, ruling out its intestinal absorption and associated adverse health consequences, if any. And calcium carbide is illegally being used for ripening of fruits. FSSAI has banned this one. And artificial sweeteners are dangerous. And NINA has done a study, indicated that both in diabetic and overweight individuals, all the sweeteners were found to be within the acceptable daily intake levels given by Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives. So avoid eggs because of their cholesterol content. They don't contribute to cholesterol. Apart from this, they will give zinc, iron, and other nutrients. And carbonated beverages, green leafy vegetables contains pesticide residues and causes health complications in consumers. NIR has conducted total diet study to assess the dietary intakes of pesticide residues among the selected populations in Hyderabad. A total of 190 foods were collected from market and analyzed for 19 pesticides. 51% of the food samples were detected with one or more residues, but all the residue levels were below acceptable daily intake. This is very important here. So it is safe. So as long as I left the lid on food that is sat out too long, it is safe to eat. No, it's not like that. Though food may be safe after cooking, it may not be safe later because every bacteria double in 20 minutes. The worst is that happen if foodborne illness is an upset stomach. No, it will not only upset stomach. It will cause fever, diarrhea, whoops, as well as the dehydration, paralysis, meningitis, as well as death. And if it tastes okay, the food I can eat. No, it's not like that. Don't decide your food based on the smell, taste, and sight. If you get sick from eating food, it always from the last food you had. No, it's not. The fact is it can take half an hour to 6 weeks to become sick from unsafe food. You usually feel okay immediately after eating food, but become sick later. If you let out a food set up for more than 2 hours, you can make it safe by eating really hot. No, some of the bacteria like Staphylococcus aureus produces enterotoxin which is heat resistant. The fact is that one. So I don't need to clean the refrigerator because I put only fruits and vegetables. If you keep fruits and vegetables also can cause cross-contamination in your refrigerator. That is the fact. So I'm a vegetarian, so I'll not get a food poisoning. There's a myth. Fruits and vegetables are an important part of healthy diet, but like other foods, they may carry a risk of foodborne illness also. So freezing food will kill the harmful bacteria that can cause the food poisoning. No, bacteria can survive freezing temperature also. That is a fact. So I don't need to rinse the melon safely, the part it inside. No, some of the bacteria through the knife or peeler passing through the rind can carry the pathogens from outside to inside, which causes contamination. And leftovers are safe, as I already said. We should not decide the food based on the smell. So when the food is cooked in a microwave, it kills the bacteria. So microwave are not what kills the bacteria. It's the heat generated by microwaves to kill the bacteria. And most of the people have this myth that microwave oven makes the food radioactive and cause cancer. No, the fact is that microwave heats the food through radiation, which is absorbed by the water particles in the food, and that helps to cook food. Microwaves do not make the food radioactive. So plastic or glass cutting boards don't hold harmful bacteria. No, any type of cutting boards can hold the bacteria. So nowadays, this is very important point. Anyhow, I have sanitized my hand, so it is all right like that. But the fact is, it only clears the outer layer. Always you should you should first wet your hands and then wash with the warm water, lather with soap for at least 20 seconds. That is very important. Here, time is very important. Minimum 20 seconds you should wash and rinse with warm water, then dry with the clean water. That is the way of washing your proper hands. And if you cut off the mold, the rest of the food is safe to eat later. No, molds produce heat-like toxin, and they also produce mycotoxins, which are toxic to humans and cause serious illness. So what is the conclusion? So food safety is a shared responsibility between the government, consumer, and industry. So government should make like provision to health-related services. Community participation is a very important consumer point of view, and industry should give proper information on labeling and consumer education. So recently I've given a talk on Doordarshan Yadagiri on how to detect adult patient food. Interested members, this is the link what I have given down. This is the link of that. And then this current research in our lab, we are working on biofood preservation. We have isolated lytic bacteriophages, which will kill foodborne pathogen. You can see here, lytic bacteriophage is very happy, whereas you can see the bacteria, it is very sad mode because it's going to kill. It is the virus is using the machinery of the bacteria to produce its own progeny. This is the current research what you are doing. And coming to the acknowledgements, I want to thank my director for giving this permission, and then DGICMR for funding, and Dr. V. Sudarshan Rao, scientist he retired, is my mentor and a guide, and Dr. Alekya Sabiti and Mrs. Gagana, they are our PG students. I would like to thank them. Thank you. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much, sir. In keeping the audience time in view, I would take all the questions. We will try to wind up in the next 15 minutes. Just be with us for the next 15 minutes. Thank you so much, sir. Can we have Dr. Ananthan also, so that we can have questions?
Yes.
To both the panelists. Sir, I wanted to ask Ananthan sir a question before I open it to the forum. Why do the IFCT tables have the nutritive value in kilojoules? So doesn't that not affect the grams of protein, carbohydrate? Earlier it was kilocalories. Now the energy values are given in terms of kilojoules. Why that change has come about?
It's a good question. Even I am seeing in the chat box, many of the participants also, they are asking the same questions. You know, for our composition tables, the guidelines given by the FAO in foods. So we use the guidelines for the development, maintaining the composition tables as per the recommendation. So now the kilojoule is recommended by the FAO and in foods. Even the UN also they have recommended. And there won't be any change in terms of the converting the nutrient into energy. You know, of course, this is the factors. So the factors which we use it for the kilocalorie, and whatever the factors we suppose use it for the kilojoule, we will use it. There won't be any change. It can be interconvertible also.
Okay. Another question, sir. As I was looking through the transition from the 1931 tables to the latest 2017, can you tell us how exactly, how was the fiber, how fiber has come into place, or how the different nutrients have come up, keeping the metabolic condition or the nutrition research which has come up?
Yeah, it's a good question. Okay. See, for example, as you specified, fiber. Till 1980, that last revision was there, NBIF, the crude fiber was reported. Now the crude fiber is absolute. So now dietary fiber has come into the picture, where you can quantify both soluble and insoluble. Even the soluble fiber also gives almost 50% of the energy of your carbohydrate. So we can able to quantify separately, you know, the soluble, insoluble dietary fiber. So like this transition, you know, in terms of dietary fiber, instead of crude fiber, we have able to quantify the dietary fiber, soluble and insoluble. And coming to the calcium, or the minerals. Earlier, they used to use a dry ash digestion method, where there are a lot of chances for the contamination. But now we have the latest technology, microwave digestion using the acid. That is called wet digestion method, where there are very minimal error for these cross contaminations. And the technology for the, in terms of if you take the vitamins, now we are with the fast HPLC system, where they used to use only the calorimetric. Let us say vitamin C, they have used the calorimetric method, but now we have used sophisticated equipment. Even the amino acid analysis also they have to use, and very robust method now we have used. So like that, there are a lot of change in terms of methods. Particularly if I wanted to talk the methods, there are a lot of change in terms of the method, which will refine your quantification of the nutrients, which are acceptable internationally.
Sir, one more question. What exactly has brought about this much change in the nutritive value? Is it the analysis method, or it is the nutrition composition has changed over years?
Actually, basically, I cannot accept that there are a lot of or the drastic change in terms of all the foods or all the nutrients, and there are changes, yes, of course. But these changes due to both. So there are the changes in terms of the variety as well as the quantification methods, or the method which used for the analysis, both.
Yeah. So we will go into the chat box. We will go into the questions. So I would like to take up the second question. How shall we identify which variety of particular vegetable, example brinjal, is being used when we calculate for the community? Because when we look at brinjal, there are 5, 6, or maybe even 10, 12 varieties of brinjal. So which do you think we should ideally choose? I think that question all of us have.
Yeah, not 5, 6 variety. We have collected 21 varieties of brinjal. So you can see in our food composition table, we have given with the photograph what kind of variety. You can choose similar to that. With the photograph, you can identify.
So, but to make it user friendly, which one do you think we should take? Can we choose any one of them?
We also have given the mean of all 21 varieties. We have, for example, the chilies, green chili, if you take more than 6 varieties, it is available, commonly available in the market. We also have given the mean of all these varieties. So if you wanted to use as a common, you can use the mean of all these varieties.
Okay, thanks. The next question, sir. Some nutritive value which were present in the older book are not mentioned in the new. So do you think we should go back to the older book in case we don't find the nutritive value? Here an example of cheese and curd have been mentioned.
So that you can take it from my NVIF book. Even the vitamin B12, we have not quantified in this one. Yes, of course, you can take it from NVIF.
So we still can rely on the earlier version for some nutrients.
Yeah.
Yeah. We go on to the next question.
Relying all those things, this is completely revised. So both are our database. We cannot segregate it is reliable, not reliable. But this is the latest database with the proper sampling we have done.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I would not want to go into the RDS 2020. I think we'll have a separate session for that. And I think there is an inquiry about if IFCT books are available by courier. I think if you go on to the N9 website, I think you would have a list of all the foods available, list of all the food, books available.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
we will VPP.
We can courier it. Can we go on to the next question? If ISCT book is okay, how will we get the webinar recording? I think it will be posted in the Facebook soon. Okay, if IFCT 2017 presented nutrient data for separate parts of non-vegetarian food, but in particular, if you want information about meat or chicken, how do you take it?
Can you please repeat?
The separate parts of the non-vegetarian food nutritive value is mentioned. Suppose I just want to represent a meat or chicken, how do I take the values?
The
mean is,
yes.
Yeah, then you can use the mean. Okay, and first time there has been a mention of vitamin D in the IFCT book. and there's a good sufficient amount of vitamin D levels which are mentioned in the book, but still we see vitamin D deficiencies. Can you add on this, sir?
It's another important question. You know, most of the Indians, not only Indians, many developing countries, even developed countries, are very vitamin D deficiencies there. But there are a lot of reasons. Now we have identified the dietary source which contains more vitamin D, but we also have to look into the bioavailability of vitamin D. How the conversion of vitamin D2, which is converting into D3. Ultimately, no, the ergocalciferol is converting into cholecalciferol. So how it is converting all those things, we have to identify. There are a lot of conversion factors has been given, 1:4 to 1:8 ratio. And then subsequently how it is absorbed by the body, all those things are there. But in another study where we have, we had a chance to look into the vitamin D or the deficiency in the northeastern people, and they are having very less deficiency. Maybe there are some mushrooms, wild edible mushrooms, which are very rich in vitamin D2, exceptionally very rich. Maybe because of that reasons they may be having less. But otherwise, we have to study very thoroughly the bioavailability of vitamin D and conversion of vitamin D2 into vitamin D.
There is another question for you, sir, again. Why is the value of iron reported in poha so high? Because nowadays, hand pound is not available.
The iron, yes, of course, we also thought, but the sample what we collected from the market. And you know, the poha, yes, as you see, there are the method developed, like, you know, the recent methods are there without any cross contamination. But I don't know exactly, maybe due to the cross contamination, what they say.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your patient answering. We would go on to Dr. Naveen to answer some of the questions. Initially, before I go on to the chat box, I just wanted to put forth to you, sir, we have seen very recently that FSSAI has said mustard oil should not be blended with any other cooking oil. Is there so much of contamination which comes up in the mustard oil that this concern has been raised?
Yes, madam. Even not only the mustard oil, any oil, madam, it should not mix with the other oils. Actually, oil you should use separately only.
So you say that we should not blend.
You should not.
In
blend.
what concern? Yes. In what aspects of? Is it microbiological or is
not? It's not due to microbiological concern, madam.
Huh.
Our lipid chemistry division has worked on this issue actually.
Huh.
Like I will not comment on this issue actually.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Apart from this, there was a mention on the genetically modified foods. Apart from the ethical aspect, do you really look at what do you say are the safety concerns of using?
That's right. We have to see the regulations of FSSAI and then only use. That's one of the major food safety concern actually. What food, what genetically modified food, and what regulation. We have to see follow the FSSAI regulation, and then only we have to start using that. I can.
Okay. As dietitian practicing in the hospitals, we send our food for the microbial analysis, maybe once in a month. So what do you think are the 4 important microorganisms, or what do you think are the 4 few microorganisms which we should send our samples for? Because when we send it to our lab, they do all the I think we should look at it from the foodborne illness or contamination which comes from the food service side. Yes, so can you enlighten us on this?
Yes. One is Escherichia coli, second one is fecal coliforms, and Staphylococcus aureus and Salmonella. So these are the 4 bacteria which you can look upon.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We will go on to the chat box, sir. To comment, we request Dr. Naveen to comment on the adulteration of milk, vegetables with chemicals.
Madam, actually recently FSSAI has analyzed around 1 lakh samples. So people having a lot of myths on adulteration of milk actually. Only 15% of the adulterated food sample out of 1 lakh samples were substandardized milk. What is substandard milk? Among 15%, only 3% of milk were substandardized. What is substandard means? For example, if fat in milk, it should be 4.5%. If it is less, if it is less than 4.5%, this will be considered as substandardized milk. So people should not be worried. And one thing we can tell here, people, we always advise to people to buy pasteurized milk.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Requesting Dr. Naveen to share any latest references for the prevalence of foodborne illnesses among children above 5 years of age and among adults in India. So how would you think you would help them, sir? Can we pass on your email to them?
Yeah, you can.
They
You
can
can
get in
pass
touch with IDA Telangana
yes,
chapter,
yes.
and we can pass on sir's email
Sure.
so that it will help you.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. In the constraint of time, I think we have some more questions come up.
Maleshwari, I have one question for Dr.
Yes, please.
Ananthan.
Yes, please.
Dr. Ananthan, Cheryl has posted one query about the difference in the potassium values. Those foods which we thought were low potassium have now come into the high potassium category. So any comments on that, because we all deal with renal patients and we really need to know this distinction very, very clearly.
No, but that's whatever the method what we adopted, we have the confidence on that. And the quantified values, it's up to our knowledge, that is correct. And if you wanted to compare, either with our NBA or other database, up to our
Doctor, one more question that I always had in mind. If somebody bought a new food or a new type of food item and wanted it analyzed for nutritive value, does your department do it?
Yes, it is possible. I cannot say no if it is only for research and development purpose. If it is for the commercial purpose, no.
Okay, thank you.
Have the food nutritive value come down over the period of time? I think that has been answered. Can we go on to the next question? Very recently, I think we don't go on to the RDA tables right now because this session is completely different, more concentrating on the food tables. We have one question for Dr. Naveen.
Yes,
was the food refrigerated or placed at room temperature in household condition while determining the safe time period for consumption? So this question is basically to ask for food time period, safe time period before the food is consumed at a household level.
At household level, your dal and rice, as I've already shown in my presentation, it is safe for 6 hours.
Sir, this is a question for Dr. Ananthan. Why did vitamin A, retinol and beta carotene level wasn't differentiated? Yes, in the earlier tables, there was a differentiation given. In the present table?
No, we have given separately. Retinol and the vitamin carotenoids, we have given separately.
Yes, sir, this is for Dr. Naveen. Does NIN still maintain the portal for food poisoning data, sir?
Right now, it is not functioning recently, but 1 year back, it was functioning.
Is the
But
same?
They can visit IDSP, Integrated Disease Surveillance Portal, developed by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, where they will get all the information related to food poisoning, investigation, outbreak. State-wise also, they will get the information. That is called IDSP, Integrated Disease Surveillance Portal.
Just now we had talked about, this question is again to Dr. Naveen. Just now we had talked about not blending oils, but here there is a question about how advisable is home blend of cooking oils? The same?
Yeah, same answer. I cannot comment on this.
Yeah, I think. What about commercial oils like Saffola, which are blended oils?
See, as NIN always we will tell, blending of oil is not good. According to NIN, we should use all the type of oil like sunflower oil, groundnut oil, and rice-rich oil. All the oil you should use, but you should not blend the oil. That I can answer.
Yes, sir. And there's another question, or maybe they're asking for a suggestion. A course by FSSAI for working dietitians in government hospital, can that be available anywhere?
Madam, they can visit FSSAI website. They will get all information, madam.
Yes. I think we've come to an end. This is for Dr. Ananthan. looking for omega-3 acid content of different types of fish. Which long chain fatty acids do we need to consider? This is for Dr. Ananthan, sir.
It's there in the database, omega-3 database for the fish content. You can choose.
Can we mix oil with butter? This is a question for Dr. Naveen.
Yes, ma'am. Oil with butter.
Butter.
See, as far as, see, there are no disadvantages, or the research papers published the disadvantages of mixing oil and butter. That much I can say.
Okay, sir. I think we come to the session. It was a very fruitful session. First of all, I should thank Dr. Ananthan and Dr. Naveen for giving a thought-provoking talk. Apart from that, I would also want to acknowledge the time which the audience have given us in sitting through the session. Thank you, one and all.
Aleshwari, 1 second.
Yes, please.
So before we conclude, I once again thank both the speakers for giving, such wonderful sessions. I did not see any session wherein all were glued to all participants stayed on till the end. I think we will need more sessions from both of you individually, where, you go into the details of it, or we do a Q&A exclusively with each one of you. Also, there are on the panelist here, I have my entire team of EC members of Telangana chapter. Thank you for joining in. If you all want to ask any questions to the speakers, you're welcome to do so, or else we will wind up the session. Any of you EC members would like to ask something?
There was a question about getting the email ID of IDA Telangana chapter. I think you can get it from the IDA website. There were 1-2 inquiries on that. Only from the other states, you can get the IDA Telangana chapter email from the website, please.
Yeah. Yes, there is
I
one
think
more
we can.
request from many people to get a session done on the latest RDA 2020. So I will request Dr. Ananthan and Dr. Naveen to help us out in organizing this session. There are a lot of requests on average requirements. So I'm sure you will be able to help us to reach out to the right team members whom you can bring them on board. And this time, I think we will take a lot of questions much ahead of time, so that part of the session can be dedicated to Q&A, and that will answer a lot of queries pan-India.
Good.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
one
you.
and
Thank
all.
you.
Any of the EC would like to comment or would like to ask any questions, please? All right. Thank you so much to each one of you for joining in. It was wonderful having people pan India from abroad. I really did not expect this session to really go so wonderfully and reach each one of you. Keeping that in mind, we will do many more sessions. Especially Dr. Ananthan is our General Secretary for IDA Telangana chapter. So you all can put in all the sessions that you want NIN to do, and we will, make the best use of him to get the right speakers from NIN. Thank you, one and all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for all.
And